The government is moving toward a historic shutdown. Week number 5 coming up. In world news, the Middle East remains very volatile. President Trump traveled to Asia for key meetings, including a sit-down with the president of China, Xi Jinping. President Trump also said the U.S. could soon start testing nuclear weapons again. A lot to cover. Joining me now to talk about this, Congressman Scott Perry of Pennsylvania. He is on 4 House committees, including the House Intelligence Committee. He represents the 10th Congressional District of the Keystone State. Congressman Perry, welcome back to This Week on Capitol Hill. Thanks for joining us.
Well, great to be with you, Tony. And sure, there is absolutely a lot going on now. Of course, the shutdown continues. Like you said, into a 5th week. We're hearing potential movement maybe after next week's election. But, the devil's always in the details. And so we're just, we're going to take a breath, hold our breath here, and hopefully we can move beyond this and get to the work of the country.
Well, I think, Congressman, the devil is in more than the details.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And in fact, I want to start with that. Actually, Thursday night, the House Freedom Caucus, which you previously chaired, you're still a part of it, along with the Family Research Council, hosted a congressional prayer call for the nation. Congress prays for the nation. You were a part of that. We're at a point where prayer and appealing to God is something we desperately need as a country.
Yeah, and thanks to the FRC for hosting that, letting Americans know that the people that work in Washington, D.C., many of Americans' leaders defer to a higher power, a higher authority. And we understand that not only America needs a revival, but the whole world needs a revival as we see tensions around the world, as we see some of those things coming right to our own doorsteps with political violence connected to the things that people believe in, the things that they say, and how unacceptable that is in the great country of America. And so this work, of course, begins at home, and it begins with not only individuals, but with leaders professing this outwardly, publicly, and being on the record. So I hope that people can be encouraged by that event last night. Again, thanks to the FRC for hosting it and leading it. And I hope that Americans and the world will see that we realize that this is everything we do is for God's glory, and that God has a hand in everything that we do, and that we need to be on his path. And even sometimes we don't understand it, that's where we need to be. But the violence is not the answer to any of the solutions or to the problems that we face today.
And I do know, Congressman Perry, that a lot of folks were encouraged by the fact that our leaders are praying and asking God for direction, whether it be the government shutdown, whether it be the political violence in our country, or the turmoil in the Middle East. And I know a lot of eyes focused on the peace, the fragile peace agreement or ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. But there's a lot more happening in that region. We have Christians, other religious minorities, Druze being targeted right next door in Syria.
That's exactly right. And I know that, like you said, seems like everyone is focused on Israel and Gaza, and rightly so. But we also need to remember that there was a revolutionary takeover in Syria by a man who says that he has shed his ties to terrorist activity and, Islamic terror, and now wants to, lead in a more secular fashion. Unfortunately, we also know at this very time, although underreported, that Christians and, as you said, other minorities, including the Druze, are being oppressed and slaughtered in that country. And in some cases, it looks like at least the government is turning their eyes from that, whether they're involved or not. But, if we're going to have a leader in Syria that we can work with, and someone who wants to join the community of nations, leadership requires ending that kind of thing. And the United States has a role, and we're going to consider whether we continue to sanction Syria or whether we do not. But, having this kind of violence and this kind of oppression in that country under new leadership is going to be a topic of discussion regarding our decision on whether we move forward with Syria or not.
Well, there are those in the administration that want to remove those sanctions and normalize relationships with a relationship with Syria. At the same time, Israel is trying to defend the Druze and other minorities, but the United States is holding them back.
Yeah, those are the concerns, and of course, it's thorny. It is complicated. It is hard always to know the truth, and so it's just a clarion call to Christians and people that believe in religious rights everywhere to become informed and to have a voice with your representatives as these topics come up, and with the administration. This is a place where America should lead as well. We're looking on the new Syrian leader to show some leadership here, but this is a place where America can lead because we have to.
Let's talk about America leading. The president this week, after on his way to his meeting in Asia with Xi Jinping. By the way, I ask you to comment on that. No record of the conversation. Not saying it didn't happen, but there was no reporting of the president having a conversation with Xi Jinping regarding the Communist Party there in China persecuting Christians and other religious minorities, which has really reached a pretty significant level of persecution in recent weeks.
Right, without a doubt. And I think it's important that the president have these dialogues. We're thankful and grateful that he is traveling the globe on behalf of America to put Americans first and Americans' interest first, but also for the topic that you discussed, which is a bellicose and adversarial Communist Party of China. We know there are millions upon millions of people in China that would love to be free and relieve themselves of the yoke of communism. Unfortunately, that's going to be up to them. But in the meantime, we have to keep pace with China, and we need to keep the pressure on China. Again, I know that the Uyghurs and other religious minorities in China are a topic of discussion. I don't know if that was brought up during the meeting with Xi, but it needs to be front and center at all times. Again, this is another nation that wants to operate within the legion of civilized nations, and we hear of horrific oppression, including forced organ harvesting, which is unconscionable, unbelievable. So this is who we're dealing with, which is why I think that the president informed the people of the United States and the world that we're going to have to keep pace with the Communist Party of China. It includes things like nuclear weapons testing. And I think that this president, who seeks peace more than probably any president in my lifetime, does that with reservation, but also knows that we have to be a deterrent to China, places like Russia, North Korea, and Iran, and we have to stay not only relevant but prepared.
Just about 30 seconds left, Congressman. So is that a part of the recipe of peace through strength?
It is a part of the recipe of peace through strength. You don't want to have to use the military option, but your adversaries have to know that it's always available, that it is the premier military, and that we can use it at our advantage at any time that we have to. So it is the ultimate point of diplomacy. It is the line of diplomacy. But if nations know that you, A, don't have it, and B, won't use it, they will run roughshod over you. And of course, history is replete with the stories of that happening. That cannot happen to America. President Trump understands this. He's letting the world know where we stand.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.